Good evening. My name is Tumi Tladi, and let's get down to business, shall we? All right. So, today, what's the current date? The 6th of July, 2021. Time is 27 minutes after 5 p.m. And I just want to do this session. Initially, I wanted to do version control, like I started a series on version control. But I'm not yet done with web application because there's another external service that I would like to introduce and get down, into business with. You see now my English is running out of time. It's depleting. I don't know why. But the service I want to introduce is called AutoMapper. I apologize, there's gonna be a lot of noise in the background. My neighbors are fixing cars, there are kids, these kids are very naughty. They're running around, they're making noise and all that, but this is not gonna stop me from making good content. I just hope that the sound is gonna be of a high quality. Alright, so like I said, I'm gonna introduce a service called AutoMapper because the last few episodes or sessions that I made, I saw AutoMap. I wanted to explain something in the code and I saw that I used AutoMapper, so I didn't want to say anything about it. But today initially I wanted to do version control, introducing two services, GitHub and Azure DevOps. Speaking of GitHub, let's quickly open this guy. Speaking of Azure DevOps and GitHub, I'm currently on web branch, not on YouTube branch, and then there's one commit that's supposed to go up. If you go to changes, you see it's being created locally, and I'm on web branch. So let me go and switch now to master. These are the things I'm excited to do, and teach according to my own understanding, how I got to understand them, and in the context of version, in the context of identical docs. Sorry. Okay, so let's pull the changes from web now to master, and then let's send it to the cloud. And I want to talk about, because the content that I'm making, when I keep on saying that it's good, it's not just good for you, someone who's watching this video right now. It's good for me because I get to identify bugs sometimes in real time, like when I'm recording, like I'm recording right now, but mostly when I'm done recording but I have uploaded, so I get to watch the entire videos myself. Every single upload I get to watch it. Then this one I identified this morning when I was watching a video on verifying page, and then it wasn't pretty. I was like, no, this is wrong. So we were about to take a look at the bug that I fixed. Okay, so we are done pushing. Now let's go switch now to YouTube branch. And let's update YouTube branch with what's on the master, and then we'll be done. As soon as it says updated, there we go. Okay, I'll come back to Visual Studio in a second. I want to talk about the bug. Let's open both GitHub and Azure DevOps, but I want to focus on GitHub version. I know I'm used to Azure DevOps because it's beautiful, the UI and everything. It's super incredible. But let me just use Azure DevOps, or rather GitHub, just for this once. Repositories. Let's give it a couple of minutes, if not seconds, to spin. And then I have this guy. Let's go identical docs. Open the files, repositories, identical docs. You see I just posted 1 minute ago. Okay, and then let's go to the commit, this one 9 minutes ago. So basically I fixed the bug. I wanna show what I did, and something was not right. So this shows that it also arrived on Azure DevOps. This is just to show that it arrived on Azure DevOps the same way it did arrive on GitHub. So this, I'm excited about the messages and everything, but I'm not gonna get into it. It's just that I fixed a bug. So the bug in essence is that initially, after we have verified the user, I went to say, okay, go and get me the user based on the user ID, and then if it's not null, when we find it, sign them in. See, this is where the bug was. This is where the bug is, because then either way I send them in, and only then I get to check, is this user the first timer or not? And if they're the first timer, they get to be redirected. This code is perfect. The problem was that this was the problem. So what I did is that, okay, I removed this whole part of the code, and I left the first check to be if, and then I replace the user ID coming from that user object to just say, just go and get your user name that comes in, and then instead of redirecting, firstly, let's check that application user. You see, I renamed it from user to application user. Now let's go and check the user based on the user ID, and when I'm done, let's check if that user it's not null, the entire object for the user is not null. Only then we can redirect. But like I said, we'll explain this, and then as usual I use my my commit rather my version update files to keep track of what I did. So that was something was very important for me to touch on. Now let's get down to business of today. So like I said, I promised to be raw. Like I just planned a couple of minutes ago when I was fixing the bug that let me do AutoMapper. So yes, I read this before, and yeah, but I'm just gonna read the description. AutoMapper is a simple little library built to solve a deceptively complex problem, getting rid of code that mapped one object to another. This is a critical thing to understand. Getting rid of code that mapped one object to another. This type of code is rather dreary and boring to write. So why not invent a tool to do it for us? Okay, so you basically have to install the NuGet package, and that's exactly what you're gonna check. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, it's maintained by .NET Foundation. It's part of a .NET Foundation. We'll come to this website when I start to do version control, because I'm tempted to click there, but not yet. Okay, so we are done. Now let's check in Visual Studio. Now I know AutoMapper it's on web applications, so let me start with this one. Firstly, let me check the NuGet. Where is it installed? On which project it's installed? So let's go right click on the solution and manage solution for the, or manage NuGet for the solution. Apologies for that. Okay, this tool, I want to give a big shout out to my lecturer, my mentor, Mr. Mayam Saba, CUT's IT lecturer. Basically, he's the one on LinkedIn that said, why don't you use, like I said twice, why don't you use AutoMapper? Because I used to, screenshot the work I'll be doing in Visual Studio and say, I'm currently doing this. And he suggested that I should use AutoMapper, and then that's when I got to use AutoMapper. So let's wait for NuGet to load all the installed packages for the entire okay, but I don't think this is flexible. Let's do this, search, and then let's look for AutoMapper. There we go. Wait. Right, so this is AutoMapper, and then you show that the two different packages are installed. So this one, is it installed? Yes, it is installed, but where? Okay, it's installed on this project, the one that targets both, the one that is for MVC and Web API. So we see 10.1.1, it's installed there. And then AutoMapper extension, the Microsoft depletes injection, this one it's installed on both MVC and Web API for .NET Core. Okay, but I do have AutoMapper, it's installed. All right, perfect. So now we know it's installed. Now let's start with this one. How do we register AutoMapper on .NET Framework? So let's go to App Start. I believe we need to go to, let's see. Is it route config? No, it's not route config. It's not filter config. Web API config. Okay, then how do you register this guy? That's very interesting. It's not in here, I know for sure. But you know, this is when our version control comes in. But give me a second. Not bundle, not filter, not identity, not route. Okay. So does it just work? No, global ASAX, right? No? No? Really? Okay. Okay. Where do you set it up or not? It's a question. Okay, it doesn't matter. Please do your own documentation. Do your own research on the documentation, how you get to use it. The reason why, again, I introduced this tool because it shows that you're keeping up with the technology. People are inventing stuff. People are doing incredible stuff. And then you getting to understand how it works or what's the intent for it. And then how do you set it up and how it works and how it simplifies your life. It's incredible as a developer. So anyway, I do have a folder called AutoMapper. As usual, I like to sort things out, nicely done. Okay, let's remove all this so I can do both of them. So let's go to Web API. I know this one you set up somewhere. It's part of installers. You see AutoMapper installer. Yes. So let's check how you make sure it gets to be registered. So I just use services.add AutoMapper, and this is the extension for it. This one, add AutoMapper, and I just say app domain. Now the current domain. Now get all the assemblies. It will get every single thing in this current domain. All right, application domain. Okay, so this is how you set up with just one line of code, and then let's go and check in MVC for .NET Core. It's the same thing. I do have AutoMapper. See, it's the same thing. Cool. So now we know how you set it up in .NET Core. All right. So how do you make use of it in .NET Framework? Okay. So I'm just going to show the folder called AutoMapper. See, it's for both Web API and MVC. And then I also have a folder called AutoMapper for Web API. I have a folder called AutoMapper for MVC. All right, cool. So let's start with .NET Framework. The MVC portion. So this for administrator, and I saw on the MVC also, it's for administrator. And then on the Web API, it's for both the version 1 and version 2. Okay. And yes, there we go. So let's start with the MVC portion. Let's do startup. Let's do version updates. I think it's very simple and basic. Okay, so what you need to do, you need to have an entity data model. So let's go to our DAL. Our DAL has tables folder, a folder called startups, and then an entity class model called the version updates. You first need this guy. And then when you're done, you need the view model. Okay, so we are done with this guy. And then in here, I need a corresponding view model. So let me go to view models for MVC. For clients, there's a folder called startup. Where is it? Okay, no, it's for administrator. Oh, okay, startup is for administrator. And then there's a class called the version updates view model. So you need these two classes. So what do they have in common? I'm glad you asked the question. Let me move this view model on the right side. Don't worry about the constructor on the data model. Don't worry about these attributes. Like I said, don't worry about these attributes. But what do they have in common? They have the same properties, the number of properties and the same property names. And this is how I program. I do not make mistake when it comes to the naming convention for properties. I make sure that they're the same. Version update underscore ID, version, and then of type string, and this one is of type GUID, release note string, and then create on datetime. You need this for it to qualify for AutoMapper. That's number one. So it's the same, it's a true for all these classes that you see inside AutoMapper, all of them. So I'm just going to use one example, which is a version update. Just don't want to waste time on it, but you see how it gets to be utilized. Okay, so now we know. Okay, so then you need a class called, because I like to keep things organized. You can see that I'm inside the folder called AutoMapper for MVC, and then I'm focusing on admin role, and then I went inside the folder for startups because the version update is for startups. It's when the application starts on the mobile application or on the mobile phone, on the mobile app, yes. So version updates, you need to give the name profile or the extension. It's recommended because whatever class name is, it's going to inherit it from profile. Now profile provides a named configuration for maps. So it's a big topic in AutoMapper. Naming convention based or they become scope per profile. Okay, so just know that any class or every class that is going to make use of AutoMapper, it needs to inherit from profile, and it comes from AutoMapper. Just know that. And then as you can see, I went to DAL, tables, startups. That's when I have this guy. I went to view models for MVC, for admin. I went to start folder. Then I have this view model. This is what you do. Basically, you just create a constructor. That's it. You create a constructor to say, then create map. Now, this is very interesting. It's not always going to be like this. So, create map creates a mapping configuration from version updates type to the version updates view model type. So I'm saying I'm creating the configuration from version updates to view model type of a version update. But it's not always like this where I'm creating from version updates, which is entity data model, or should I say model, to the view model. It's not always like that. Sometimes it's going to be from model, from view model to model. And sometimes there's a use case where you're going to have two of them. But let's see how you make use of this. So then we know there's a folder called AutoMapper. Okay, let's go quickly to where we are utilizing it. MVC for admin. Going to startups, there's a controller called the version updates controller. So let's look for AutoMapper. There we go. So for info page, so basically what happens for info page is that, let's do this in live. Let's do this in live. There's a version of .NET framework. I want to show you that what it does and how it does it live. So this is why my content, the content on my YouTube channel is great, because I get to show you this, not just talk about the fancy UI or the code that's complicated, but how do I show, both of them. So now we are authenticated as administrator. I'm gonna go to updates. Only I have access to updates, which is version updates. Okay, so it's pulling data from database. That's number one thing you should understand. It's pulling data from database from a table called the version update. This is the data coming from that database table called the version update. As soon as I click this guy, I'm gonna go to the info page. Right now I'm on the index, right? So as soon as I click that link, I'm gonna go to this info page, and this is the corresponding action method. That's gonna take in the update ID, right? Cool. So let me do that, and notice what's going to happen on the URL. There we go. You see, I went to the info page, our view, that takes in view update ID, and this is the ID. It's long, it's of type GUID. This is it. So now what I'm doing is I'm showing data from database, but I'm mapping it to my view model, because then I am a developer, a kind of developer that's making use of MVVM pattern. Right? And then please don't ask me why, because the views should not know anything about the models. They should not. You do not expose the things that come directly from the model. Say I do have a fifth property called who created this update. Let's say creator. After create on, I have creator. So it will take the name of the person who added this update, right? So let's say I want it to be secret. I don't want this to go via the wire, so I don't push it. But as long as I can map it, the number of properties to the corresponding number of the properties for the view model, and the names are the same, it's gonna map it perfectly. So now you understand this. Okay. So let's go back. So I have a try and catch block, as I usually like to show, where I handle the exception to say, let me show the alert for type danger passing in the exception, and let me redirect it back to the index. Okay. And then what I do inside the try, I'm gonna check if that update, version update, it's not null. If it is null, we're gonna show some error. And then I'm gonna say, okay, go and find, using the find async, it's asynchronous. I'm asynchronous developer. Okay. Now you're gonna use find async, the guy that talks to the database, which is application DB context as a local variable of that object. Now go to the table called the version updates, go find a version update based on the version update ID, and then that's the object right there. As you can see, this is the object. So we're gonna check, did we find something? If we didn't find anything, we're gonna show it appropriate alert for info, and then we're gonna redirect. But if we did, this is how I get to map. This. Basically, this is how I get to map. Now you're gonna see this more often, hence I decided to do this video, because it's almost everywhere. Now, firstly, a local variable called mapper configuration. That's the first thing you need. You want to say new mapper configuration. This is how I program, like I said. I only make it the first character to be a lowercase. So this is the object, and I'm passing in the options, where I'm saying, okay, the options, we're gonna add the profile, okay? Add an existing profile type. Profile will be instantiated and added to the configuration, right? Now, the profile that I add, remember the class called version update profile, this one. So that's the one I'm adding, this guy. That's the one I'm adding as a profile. So I like to keep it clean so that if there's an issue, then I go and and tackle the corresponding profile. That's why the naming convention is perfect in my system. So there's a map configuration where I bring in the profile. The second thing that I do is that now I'm gonna have a local variable called mapper. So out of that configuration where I add this profile, I'm gonna create a mapper. Okay, create a mapper instance based on this configuration. Mapper instances are lightweight and can be created as needed, right? So it returns that instance, which is IMapper, of type IMapper. Right, then what I do, look at my view model. This is my view model, but it's a local variable. So what I do is I'm saying mapper, now let's map. Now, it's gonna execute a mapping from the source object to a new destination object. Remember, the source is from version update, the destination is version update view model. The source type is inferred from the source object. So what I do, this is the source. Again, let me hover. This is the source that comes in, which is the version updates. As you can see, it comes in. It's now gonna output this object. That's why I store it. You see, version updates view model, correct way of doing it, and then I return, I inject it. This is it extensively. So let me look for a different use case. Let me see uploads. Like I told you, it's not always gonna be from the model to the view model. Sometimes it's gonna be from the view model to the model. It depends on the use case. See, from view model to the model. It's like something like this. Let's say, for argument's sake, I'm gonna edit. Remember, this came from the model. Now this is the view model. As soon as I change something, it's gonna move from the view model to the model. Okay, but I want to show a different use case where you can have multiple maps that you're gonna create. There we go, for feedbacks. I just want to show this, that you can have this based on their use cases. These guys. And in a nutshell, this is AutoMapper. So this was for MVC. Let me close all these guys. Now for Web API, because I use my APIs are versioned. Let's go for general, the same feedback. See feedbacks underscore version 1. It's a profile. Like I said, everything here is from profile. Okay, so where I create 2 of them, and now this is very interesting. Because this is a web API. Okay, so my web API, because I'm gonna do this when I get to web API, I'm still gonna break web API into pieces. In fact, I should do that before I move to mobile application. I should break web API into pieces so you can understand that in MVC I create view models, but in web API we don't use the view models, we use the requests and the responses. You understand this as soon as I do that. But in a nutshell, let me show you what this class is all about. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 properties. You get this guy here, and then the get all feedbacks response for version 1. It has how many properties? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this one has 6. Now do you see the purpose of this guy? So which one it doesn't exist in there? It's show public. I have 5, but I don't expose show public because show public property, it's a model property. It's very sensitive, so I don't expose it to a mobile application because this is for web API, so I don't expose it. So hence I only have this. So it seems like I need to correct myself to say the number of properties don't need to match, unfortunately. So like I said, I'm still learning. I did not plan this, but it's good to know. But let's trace this guy. Let's look for the references. Web API for version 1. Yes, that's what I want. No, but I'm inside the folder. I don't want that. I want the controller. That's the one. So okay, so this is web API where we're getting all the feedbacks, right? Because this said now we are taking data from this object, the entity model, to respond to the mobile application. I'm saying get all feedbacks response. Okay, so here's a controller. The summary says get all approved. You see, approved the feedbacks from the system. So we're not gonna do this extensively, but because I'm still gonna get to it. So in a nutshell is that I'm having this local variable get all feedbacks response because it returns that list. You see the return type, but we'll do this. So I have it ready, and then I create a mapper configuration. So I like to keep consistency. I don't care which framework it is, web API or web MVC framework platform, doesn't matter. I create mapper configuration options where I add the profile. We just saw it just now, and then out of that configuration I create the actual map, and then out of that now I get to execute. Where's the execution part? This is the execution part, because I'm looping, I'm inside for each, and this guy is a list of get all. So I'm saying now from each item, which is feedbacks, now I want you now, because you're the source, I want you now to give me destination, and when you're done, add it to this list. That's how simple it is. That's how simple it is. Now I need to show something how it's fixing this thing, but I want to use something that's more complex, which is let's look for uploads, because I know this one is quite complex. Let me look for references because it has too many properties. And then I'm going to show the history of version control, what used to be before this 6 lines of code, 5 lines of code, what used to be. I just hope with that Visual Studio is not going to hang up, because it has a habit of hanging up on me and I don't like it. Visual Studio, Visual Studio, Visual Studio, Visual Studio. But you know what? I'm still authenticated on version control. While this thing, well, I'm not. Okay, let me open Azure DevOps, because this one is easier, because I'm afraid that this is gonna hang up. and I don't like it. But it's fine. Let me quickly go to the code. You see, I have a backup plan. See, my work is easier and I like it. So let's quickly go to no, it's not gonna be that easy because I'm looking for a specific commit. Because even if I go to commits, it's not gonna be that easy. I want specific commit for this project. Let me see. Controller. Even web API, it's okay. Version 1. I want for uploads. This guy. Yeah, but I think I can still see, but this is the actual code. So I was saying, before it used to be this 5 lines of code. What is it that it used to be? I can do compare. What does compare do? This is where I bring AutoMapper. Let's perfect. Yeah, no, Visual Studio is done for the day. So I'm bringing in, using AutoMapper, I'm bringing in the profiles, as you can see, from AutoMapper folder. And then this is what it used to be before. And I'm done. This is what AutoMapper solves. So before Ms. Admire gave me advice to look into AutoMapper, this is what I used to have. This is how I used to map it. This is how I used to. And if you look at it, the service is the same as service. Ink type is the same as ink type. File name is the same as file name. File type is the same as file type. Double-sided, the same as double-sided. Even the longest one, like number of pages, the same as number of pages. This is what AutoMapper is capable of doing. This doesn't matter. You just have to map to correct source and destination, and then that's it. Now I think I'm gonna love what you call this guy, because this is very interesting. Show next div. I'm gonna do this as soon as I get it to version control system. It's gonna be fun and fantastic. I'm gonna focus on one thing only. So in a nutshell, this is AutoMapper. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. You know, it's super incredible. I mean, look at this, because I knew that this can help. Look at the number of the properties. And then you don't want to say business ID and just say ID. You want to keep it the same way, like customer phone number. Let it be customer phone number. You want to do this. I'm still going to teach myself this. So I can go back to other times. Okay. Interesting. Okay. And I can also blame. Who can we blame? I want to blame some. Okay. In a nutshell, that's it. Thank you for watching this video. The content is good. I'm not gonna argue about that. I'm very good. The content on this YouTube is good. Please like, share, leave a comment if you have any, and then subscribe. Tell your fellow developers about this content, because a fellow developer, Ms. Admire, told me about AutoMapper and I got to utilize it. Please tell your friends so that they can learn also, and then subscribe. Thank you very much. Until I see you next time, and stay tuned for more videos, daily videos, as they get to be uploaded. Thank you.